Great. Thank you for that kind introduction. I am a professor of computer science at Stanford and also one of the co-founders and the vice director of our Institute for Human-Centered AI. And AI, as we saw in Scott's talk, is a really powerful tool, but it's critical that we design AI systems at the user, community, and society level. You can start by designing with communities beyond your direct user population. And if you start just there, you're going to create AI systems that are more likely to have a positive societal impact. I've been working on this, defining this new model for AI design for the last few months, and today I hope to make these ideas clearer as I speak about a need for a more human-centered view of artificial intelligence. So you all know AI has taken the world by storm in many areas, from scientific discovery with tools like AlphaFold to NLP with very usable speech recognition that many of us use every day, or language translation, or agents like we saw with ChatGPT, all the way to things like AI-driven fashion design, to even working robotics, although maybe not yet this sci-fi future of interacting with smart social robots. But the most common place that we see artificial intelligence making impact today is in manipulating our social network feeds, causing people to feel bad, or even worse, to be deceived and outraged, even upending democracies all over the world. Or we see AI helping judges to set bail or sentencing for suspected criminals in a way that is biased by race, as has been shown in studies of the Compass program. And these are some of the reasons that we founded HAI 3 years ago with 3 guiding principles. So first, AI should be inspired by human intelligence. The human brain remains the single most sophisticated device in the known universe, and we should strive to learn all we can from its nature. And AI should be guided by a concern for its impact on society. This technology is too potent to consider its effects after the fact, compelling us to explore its ethical implications before, during, and after its development. And then finally, AI should augment people, not replace them. It's inevitable that we'll reshape significant swaths of the global workforce, as Scott had showed, for example, in his talk, and we should prepare ourselves for that upheaval. But with proper guidance, we believe AI can enhance the qualities that make us human. Now, because of these negative impacts, we've seen a proliferation of AI for good initiatives at universities and nonprofits. There's 2 main ways I see these efforts going. The first type of initiative is often made up of social scientists who notice and critique the potential or real harms of AI. That's useful, but that doesn't help us apply AI in positive ways. It might avoid some of the problems after the fact, but we'd like to get to those more proactively, earlier, to avoid these issues. The second type of effort, which is both more common and often fails, is when technologists try to go it alone. Typically, AI experts see an important social impact area like health and apply AI naively so that it doesn't work in practice. This has happened repeatedly, but has occurred acutely in short-term crises like COVID. It's also occurred repeatedly over the long term. So for example, in 2016, Turing Award winner Jeff Hinton, this is like the Nobel Prize in computer science, said we should stop training radiologists now, as AI will easily surpass humans within 5 years. This has not worked out as he predicted, not AI in radiology, not in AI in skin cancer detection, and not AI in several other areas, often due to differences between the ideal data sets on which researchers train and test their algorithms and the messiness of the data found in the real world. Even worse, often these researchers don't even solve the right problem. For example, instead of trying to replace radiologists, we might want to have AI systems working in tandem with the radiologists to make the technology more useful, augment the radiologist's capabilities rather than replace them. My Stanford radiology and AI colleague Kurt Langholz writes in one of his papers, "Will AI replace radiologists?" is the wrong question. Instead, he wrote, the right answer is radiologists who use AI will replace radiologists who don't. So we need to augment, The big problem is we don't know how to design AI systems to have positive human impacts. I believe there's a better way to design AI for positive human impact. The better way is what I term human-centered AI. How do we get positive outcomes from AI? That is, what would it have taken to avoid the negative outcomes from Compass's AI-assisted sentencing algorithms? To avoid these outcomes, we must design and analyze these systems at 3 levels in conjunction, in terms of the user, the community, and society. I believe that if you do this, you'll create technology that has a better chance of making a positive impact. So what do I mean by human-centered AI and these levels of analysis? First, human-centered AI is about the scope of who we studied to find our problems, develop our solutions, and evaluate our systems. To do this, we first need to have a user-centered process. That is, to integrate well-known techniques from human-computer interaction and design that account for the needs and abilities of end users of computing systems early and often, and repeatedly iterate and improve through rigorous testing. But we must go beyond just having a rigorous process. We need to creatively develop new designs that augment people by accounting for their cognitive abilities and existing workflows. And we should base these on underlying theories about how and why people behave the way they do. This will help us develop AI systems that work for humans rather than futilely trying to replicate humans. But this is not enough. As been illustrated by some of the harmful examples that I mentioned previously, we can't only design around the user. That would be like designing the sentencing system just for the judge, creating a nice user interface that they could understand the data, but that would ignore some of the underlying systemic issues. It would ignore the community that the system impacts, the people who are accused, their families, the lawyers, the victims, their families. We need to understand the issues of these different communities and things like structural racism before we can appropriately design such a system. Maybe some of those people will become our users. But even that is enough. We need to understand the impacts on society at large. What does it mean to have a large percentage of African-American males in prison in the US, or a large percent of people caught using illegal drugs? These have immense societal costs. And so we need to be able to forecast what might happen if the software becomes ubiquitous and designed to mediate for these issues. That's hard, especially for computer scientists. That's why we need interdisciplinary teams from the start. So not only technologists and AI experts, but also experts from design, experts from the social sciences and humanities, and domain expertise, depending on the area. So things like medicine, law, and environmental science. And they need to be partners from the start, not just later looking for possible harms. So one example, Scott brought up Tesla, is let's think about autonomous driving. It's coming, depending on how you define it. But so far, most of the focus is at that user-centered level, on the driver and what they see and what are the cars around them. That is a big issue because by not paying attention to the other cars, pedestrians, bikes, until much later in the development of this technology, 30 years later, some of these issues have become large. They've always been an afterthought. And at the society level, we need to consider the impacts of autonomous cars on the city or a region. Maybe the impacts are not as positive as enthusiasts might lead you to believe. Some studies show that autonomous cars will lead to more traffic and more deaths due to driving more miles, living further away, and sending cars around empty. And so we need to really look at this. These aren't just newspaper headlines. It's based on research from the University of Texas, where they found that, at least in the Texas Triangle mega region, autonomous cars will likely swamp traffic. With this type of analysis from the start, we might decide our societal resources might be better spent on building a better public transit system. If we only analyze and design at the user-centered level at the start, we may ignore these important questions until it's too late. The questions I've raised at the society-centered level of analysis imply this analysis must analyze questions of power, which is often left out of technology research. I believe we as designers need to take on the analysis of design at the 3 levels I've advocated so we can properly identify and take on power. What I want you to take away from this introduction is that there are many great applications where we can use AI to help people be better at their tasks, to augment them to be better learners, better designers, and take better care of their body. The key is to keep users, communities, and society's needs at the center of these smart interface designs. It's critical that we design at these 3 levels. We're really in the early stages, though, of finding the right design practices and tools to create truly human-centered AI. You can start by designing with communities beyond your direct user population, and I believe you will create AI systems that are more likely to have a positive social impact. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Amy, maybe you're more on the practical side. You're more focused on business than on technology. You both teach at Stanford. Maybe you can respond to that and talk a little bit about some examples of companies that, in your view, are using AI today successfully.
Yes, so I agree with James that AI is going to amplify. Instead of thinking that AI is going to replace you as a human or take your job, I think the way that we look at it, I'm an entrepreneurship and innovation expert, is that AI should be your assistant. You're going to have a personal assistant that makes you more productive at work. And if you look back 20 years, I think a lot of companies were wondering about the internet. Should they be on the internet? What's this whole web thing? Will it make the businesses more productive or not? Obviously, we know that it was essential for businesses to use the internet. I think 10 years from now, we'll look back and think that about AI. Business will simply include AI. It will not be, something that we're debating. It will be something that makes companies a lot more effective. Leaders will make faster decisions. It will drive innovation frontiers. There are a number of companies, actually there's research that shows that right now businesses that are effectively using AI have a 5x in revenue, right? So there's lots of data showing that it is accelerating business. I think Ernst & Young, EY, I've just spoken to the Chief Innovation Officer a couple days ago and have been following, that's tax preparation and auditing, huge amount of AI in that business in terms of accelerating. Walmart is another example, and Walmart is a heavy assets business. I love to tell people that Chinese military is the #1 employer in the world. The US military is the #2 employer in the world. Walmart is #3. They have 2.2 million people. They have stores that are 10 miles from 90% of the US population. They are an old school, heavy assets business. They are using AI extremely productively. Right now, one of the applications is in theft. At the personal checkout, when people are checking themselves out of a store, evidently a lot of people, and not people that I know, but this is a big problem for them, are stealing things. And so those machines are enabled with AI to stop that. Even Hearst, I was in a conversation with the chief content editor of Hearst magazines 2 days ago. They are talking about how this ChatGPT can accelerate their editors. They can take out a lot of the work that takes menial amounts of time, and they will have to have better editors. They will put better magazine covers out. Cosmopolitan magazine used, an artificial intelligence cover, and they did this months and months ago before it kind of was in vogue, and it's one of their best covers that they've run. So I think there are lots of examples. There's some startup examples. Stitch Fix in the retail space, using AI to personalize what retail comes to you, way outperforming traditional retail. Citrine, which is an informatics company, they have a 500% return in the last year using AI, and they drive innovation and new products for chemicals and materials companies. So there's lots of examples here that when people are using AI as an assistant to amplify, their results are just unbelievably magnified. So that's a point of view.
James, let me ask you about this. You use this word human, and it always reminds me of the quote from Samuel Johnson about patriotism, the kind of the last refuge. Johnson used that in the 18th century in the beginnings of the age of nationalism. And I wonder whether we overuse this word human. We use it as we're on the brink, or perhaps in the age of AI. We use this word because we're confused about the age we live in. We don't have better words. What do you mean by the word human? I'm always very suspicious of people who use it. And it also, it sort of reflects, it seems to me from your presentation that you have your own agenda. Everyone who uses human has, for better or worse, perhaps because we're humans, we have agendas, we have interests, we have values. So what do you mean by human?
Well, you know, human maybe comes very easy to me because I've worked my whole career in a field called human-computer interaction. And human, to me, means people, it means society, it means communities. But I think we may even want to get beyond human and start talking about, you know, planet-centered and sustainability-centered, because human also excludes animals and our environment, and lots of these technologies can have negative impacts on them. And if we don't think about them as part of our design, we will ignore that. So, you know, human is really a stand-in for things about civilization, humanity.
So your use of the word human is supposed to make us warm and fuzzy?
No, I don't think it's warm and fuzzy. It's to say that's what we really, as a society, value, and that's where we should make sure that's what things are about, not about does somebody make a buck or this shiny new bauble, I have metaverse out there for you, it's so cool. No, what does it do for people? That's what we care about. So it's putting people first, putting our needs first.
Amy, both of you teach at Stanford University. It seems as if we're on the age of not just the AI age, but AI hysteria centered around OpenAI. I think Scott mentioned it's valued at $20 billion or something absurd. Are you concerned that we haven't learned from history, that we're just going through these cycles? Sam Altman, who runs OpenAPI, sounds a lot like Mark Zuckerberg, using technology to save mankind while making an enormous fortune for himself. What concerns you about this new wave of hysteria around AI?
So I don't know if I would call it a wave of hysteria. I mean, I think it's a wave, and it's one of the most interesting things that's happening in the technology world. I do think it's important for ChatGPT to have some explanation of where it's sourcing data, right? Some transparency on where things are coming from. You know, so I think that needs to probably be built in. If your question is about the people behind this, you know, there are some very big players like Microsoft. I'm sure everyone here has seen that there's a potential $10 billion investment in OpenAI. That will be very interesting to see if ChatGPT and, you know, some of these technologies are embedded in Office suites. So if they're already in PowerPoint, if they're in Word, if they're in Excel, et cetera. So I think that there are quite a few points of view. The Stanford Human-Centered AI team is very experienced, and you have big companies, small companies, startups. You know, I feel pretty confident that this is going forward with lots of eyes on it.
Let me also address this for you, James. You're the head of the computer science department at Stanford. So you've got smart young kids coming through who will transform the world for better or worse. What are you teaching them about their responsibility? What have you learned from the past? Some of your Stanford colleagues are here. They've written books about their regrets of not giving the kids they educate at Stanford a moral education. What kind of moral education are you giving computer science students at Stanford about AI and their responsibility when it comes to your word, human?
Yeah. Great question. I would first say I'm not the head of the computer science department. My colleague Mayron over there is actually.
And
Mayron will speak about that topic tomorrow. But
good.
you know, he's created a course along with folks in the social sciences who are experts in ethics, and that course meets a requirement of our major as well as other majors. It's been a huge success with hundreds of students taking it per year. But I think we've had that kind of requirement for years. Just having a course, you got to take it, is not enough. So what we've really done is invest in a program we call embedded ethics, where we try to get those ethical lessons into the different courses in the context of what the students are learning. So many AI classes will have this built in. We're expanding the number every year. My course in human-computer interaction and design has this, and so the students are having to think about who are the users this might also impact, who they're not thinking about, who's being excluded, what could be the negative impacts. These aren't the silver bullets. They're not going to solve all problems, but we want people thinking about these things early on and have the skills to reason about it. And I also think, you know, as we saw from the minister here from Bavaria, we're also going to need some regulation. So all of those things together. And then I would comment on the bit about OpenAI, just to say, we've seen this over and over. I've been in computing for 30 years. The investors, the VCs, they overhype the latest thing, and then when it doesn't work out, they totally go the other way too much. And the truth is always somewhere in the middle. These technologies are going to make a big impact. Whether OpenAI is the one that it will happen in the long run, that's not my business to predict. I personally would doubt it.
When we got to wrap up in a couple of minutes. Amy, last question for you. You work a lot with corporations. As we've had an increasingly dysfunctional American government, as we trust entrepreneurs, startup entrepreneurs less and less, are the real grown-ups when it comes to AI, the real grown-ups in the room, are they corporations like Microsoft who are heavily invested in OpenAI, for example? Can we trust this new hysteria, this new chapter in technology, because large companies like Microsoft offer a degree of moral guidance and responsibility?
Well, I think there are good people at big companies. I think there are good people at small startups. I think there are good people in government.
There are even good people here, right?
Right.
Hands up anyone who isn't good. Nobody?
Oh, there's some naughty players.
Martin is not good.
Okay. Yeah, well, I think that there are a lot of, quote, adult supervisors looking at this and so many different points of view. I do think it will take multiple constituents, right? And so the fact that Microsoft and Google and very large companies are doing quite a lot, universities and academics are, yes, there are investors that will get in with a point of view. I think that it takes a collective kind of look at that.
Let me end with a question for James. James, last night I had dinner with a startup entrepreneur who was building a replica of a human brain that lived. He claimed, I'm not sure if it's true, but we're clearly entering a new age, an age of augmented reality where humans are merging with machines. Should we have a better word than human? Will we still be using this word in 50 years, do you think?
I suspect we will still be using this word. And we've been merging with machines for hundreds of years. Machines have always been there as tools that humans use to augment our abilities. And yeah, they're getting more powerful and they're becoming more information-oriented, but this is not a new thing, and we have dealt with it before, and we will learn to deal with it again.
So there'll never be a moment in quote-unquote human history where we live in a post-human age?
I don't know. I'm kind of skeptical of anybody who says they're replicating the human brain, given we don't even know how the human brain works. So, I think it's going to be a while.
I think one of the interesting questions here is and James and I have had this conversation, what makes a human different, right? And it's the empathy or it's the emotional lens. Yeah,
I said one of my colleagues, Monica Lamb, has said ChatGPT is kind of like that part of your brain that just has things going on that you might say, but it's lacking the prefrontal cortex to say, oh, I really shouldn't say that, and kind of
inside voice. Right.
Inside voice keeps you from saying whatever comes into your brain. We're far from having that.
So we're good, for 100 years, James?
I'll leave Scott Galloway to make those predictions, but, at least 30 to 100, I would say, from these kind of things.
So we can sleep well. Thank you so much.